Shana Tova and Shabbat Shalom. 30-year-old women shouldn't need to relearn how to walk. But there wasn't really a better option for Anne. She had graduated from the ICU to rehab barely a month after she graduated her PhD program. Somewhere in the cross-country move from grad school to postdoc, she had contracted bacterial pneumonia, which led to 2 bouts of sepsis, 3 weeks in the ICU, and moments on the brink of death. I realized I needed to keep breathing to live, she said, so I told myself, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Anne is better now, insofar as she can walk and hasn't returned to the hospital. But she deals with a disability common to people who have spent long stretches in the ICU, chronic fatigue. For years, Anne has carefully shepherded her energy to get through each day. Grocery shopping and going to work take a lot of steps. So does hiking, so she stopped hiking. And seeing friends, and traveling. She cut everything down and resigned herself to this minimalist existence. She only had energy for the essentials. But what is essential? During COVID lockdown, certain essential workers were mandated to continue. People who would keep the grocery stores open, provide healthcare and emergency services, and sustain energy supply and waste management. In essence, we tended to our basest physical needs, and we were miserable. But we expected that. That's how it went for Anne too for a while. And then, a few months ago, she burst into a phone call gushing. I've changed around all my priorities. I think tonight I'll go sit on my rooftop and enjoy the sunset. And I used to feel bad about going to Shabbat services. I felt like that was an indulgence, but I get now that I need it as much as I need groceries. Going to services as much as essential as groceries, like that's music to a rabbi's ears for sure. Though if you have to choose, please choose groceries. I asked what had changed. Anne had rediscovered her sense of awe. In Berkeley professor Dr. Keltner's book, Awe, The New Science of Everyday Wonder and How It Can Transform Your Life, Keltner posits that awe is the most transformative emotion, the best for our mental health, and the best for our ability to collaborate with others. Awe transforms us, he says, quote, by quieting the nagging, self-critical, overbearing, status-conscious voice of ourself or ego, and empowering us to collaborate, to open our minds to wonders, and to see the deep patterns of life. In order to explore his theory, we must first define the term. Keltner collaborated with Jonathan Haidt, the NYU Stern social psychologist who wrote The Righteous Mind. Their research ranged from anthropologists' accounts of dance, music, and art and religion in faraway remote cultures, to the passions of mobs whipped up by demagogues, to the most traditional stories of sacred experiences of encountering the divine. They reached the following definition. Awe is the feeling of being in the presence of something vast that transcends your current understanding of the world. The feeling of being in the presence of something vast that transcends your current understanding of the world. Consider what experiences you have had when you were struck by the beauty or depth of a moment. Keltner studied many such moments and categorized the causes into what he calls the 8 wonders of life. Around the world, the most common cause for awe is actually also the closest to home: other people's courage, kindness, strength, or ability to overcome. The second is the electric connection of being part of a group, whether that group is in an intimate wedding ceremony or filling Wembley Stadium for a mega concert. The other wonders of life he found are nature, music, visual design, spiritual or religious awe, experiences of witnessing life beginning or ending, and epiphanies. I was surprised to learn that people feel awe more frequently than I thought, as in 2 to 3 times a week. To say a sense of awe sounds grandiose and unattainable on such a regular basis. Perhaps it helps to think of it more as a feeling of being struck by something, a moment of wow. Or perhaps we should think of it as children do, all the time. There's a story in my family lore that we told so often I thought it was about me until I realized sometime in my teens I had never been to Disneyland. The story goes that a preschool friend of mine was taken to Disneyland by his parents. They enter the gates, look up at the castle, it's sparkling, there are Mickey Mouses around the corner, and the kid cries out, "Look, Daddy, a duck!" Sometimes that's just it. It's about noticing the awe-inspiring duck. Grandeur does help, to be sure. In her book, God in the Wilderness, Rabbi Jamie Korngold writes, "Did you ever wonder why God made Moses climb Mount Sinai to get the 10 Commandments? Wasn't there a nice desert oasis they could have met at?" Her student, Evan, who's now a friend of mine, a rabbi in Lake Tahoe, quipped, "So that Moses would be so out of breath they couldn't say no?" Rabbi Jamie, of course, is going for a different point. Standing at the summit peak, surrounded by vast stretches of wilderness, it's hard not to feel such smallness, yet absolute connection to something greater than myself. Awe is amazing because it can feel like soaring and be deeply humbling at the same time. However, it's not always a positive emotion. To say something is full of awe, it can be either awesome or awful. Dr. Keltner was compelled to study awe in the first place because he encountered it in the place no one wants to be. His brother Rolf had been his best friend. They were inseparable for their entire lives. But Rolf was diagnosed with an aggressive cancer, and one horrible day, Dr. got the text message, "It's over, he's leaving us." Dr. was able to reach his brother before the end, and he wrote of it, "I sensed the light radiating from Rolf's face, the chatter in my mind, clasping words about the stages of colon cancer, new treatments, lymph nodes, and survival rates, it all faded. I could sense a force around his body pulling him away, and questions in my mind. What is Rolf thinking? What is he feeling? What does it mean for him to die?" A voice in my head said, "I feel awe." Watching Rolf pass, I felt small, quiet, humble, pure. The boundaries that separated me from the outside world faded. I felt surrounded by something vast and warm. My mind was open, curious, aware, wondering. In the months that followed, Keltner again reached for experiences of awe. He sought moments of awe each day, sought out places of importance in the history of awe, and conversations with people he considered awe pioneers. He emerged from his study of awe and his grief together, with the knowledge that awe is almost always close at hand and is, quote, a pathway to healing and growing in the face of losses and trauma, as I've seen too with Anne. Awe is universal, but Jewish tradition offers us entry points in language to find awe. Most immediately, we find ourselves today at the beginning of the days of awe, the Yamim Noraim. The word awe in English is related to both the Middle English root ege and the Old Norse agi, which Keltner explains both refer to fear, dread, horror, and terror. Similarly, the word norah, of yamim noraim in Hebrew, comes from the root yirah, which in its different forms means to fear, to revere, or to inspire awe or dread. From here, we get the idea of fear of God, the concept of being a God-fearing person, as Job was described. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, perhaps the most prolific Jewish author on awe, addresses these dual meanings in biblical theology. There is the man who fears the Lord, lest he be punished in his body, family, or in his possessions. Another man fears the Lord because he is afraid of punishment in the life to come. Both types are considered inferior in Jewish tradition. Job was not motivated in his piety by fear, but rather by awe, by the realization of the grandeur of God's eternal love. The Jewish ideal is to be inspired to be a good person, inspired to elevate the holy spark within. Heschel continues, awe, unlike fear, does not make us shrink from the awe-inspiring object, but on the contrary, draws us near to it. In every service, as we did this morning when we approach the Shema, we sing, V'keravtanu l'shimcha hagadol. You, God, drew us near to your great name. These words conclude Ahava Rabbah, our prayer about God's eternal love, and speak of God drawing us near. But we have no definitive sense of God's actions. If we draw near to holiness, it is on our initiative, following our experience of awe, seeking our experience of awe. The gratitude we express in Ahava Rabbah, therefore, is gratitude that we can draw near holiness, and that gratitude is well placed. Precisely because we can draw near to holiness, because we can have experiences of awe, we can become better versions of ourselves. We can become more capable of handling the life that we live. Research has shown that experiences of awe make people more generous, more collaborative, lengthens their sense of perspective, and enhances their sense of well-being. And it makes sense. Awe's feeling of vastness beyond understanding helps us put our problems in perspective and maybe put them aside. Perhaps that is why our days of awe are so tied to repentance. In finding that feeling of uplifting expansiveness, we can find it in ourselves to change. These days of awe present an opportunity bigger than repentance or celebration. I invite you, between now and the end of Yom Kippur, to find flickers of awe and hold them. Open yourself to them. Let them grow. Find awe in kindness, in music, in learning, in nature, and in prayer. Know what it means to find that feeling. It is good for you. This is practice. This is practice for the rest of the year. Shana Tova. I wish you an awesome new year.
Shana Tova.